Sometimes it's about more than manifesting. You got to do the work. The guest I have today is a bit of a traveler. And he puts to rest the notion that you have to stay somewhere, work at a job for 35, 40 years, grow old, raise your kids, and retire. He is the reason I am here in Denver, Colorado. I want to welcome Dion to the Keep It Uplifting podcast, where we show and prove that the change you seek is possible if you keep going, keep grinding, and keep it uplifting. Dion.
Yes, sir. Happy to be here, first of all. Happy to be here, first of all.
You can't stay put.
I can't.
And you don't have a problem with getting up and going. Where does that come from?
I think it comes from the fact that I was very close to my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
She passed away right when COVID started. And my grandfather, old school to the bone. He was a farmer, tobacco farmer. Might have been a bootlegger, who knows, there's a still in the back of our property in Virginia. But here nor there, he worked hard, and he was okay with just staying in the same area. He never really wanted to move around. He was good with just building what he had where it was, and leaving that area in Virginia was just not a thing for him. Whereas my grandmother, she passed away of dementia and Alzheimer's. She started to mention that some of the things that she wanted to do was, move around.
Right.
And I made it a point to say, you know what, I'm not just going to stay around, in my same situation for life, because how do you learn about other cultures? How do you learn about the world? How do you learn about this country? Right. If you don't, if I'm staying in DC, all I know is DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and I'll travel to Miami or New York, and I'll get a piece of that. But you won't get to see much of anything else if you stay in the same area. But
DC it's where you're from. It's a piece of you. It's exuded off of you when someone meets you, right? It's in your slang, your vernacular.
It is.
Right?
It is.
So was Colorado the first stop?
No. So the funny story of how we found this was kind of crazy. And even with DC is still Denver, Colorado too. People don't look at it that way. It's like, we're DC also. But no. So before me and my wife got married, during COVID, right? We we had time on our hands. I was working at the job that I was working at, and we weren't really working. We were getting paid great, right, but we weren't really working. So we decided to sit on the road. In my house where it sat, people that know the DMV area, 70 loops around. Right. When you get to that little area in Cadensville, right? Yeah. The very first sign that you see is St. Louis is about 800 miles, and Denver, Colorado is like 1,600, and there's a couple of more stops after that. So my now wife and I said, let's drive this out and see where it takes us. And we started driving. We just kept driving. We would stop off at small little towns, and you go into a bar, you see people not like you, and you're thinking like, oh no, here it is, I got to get my gun. But then you realize these people are saying, come on in, enjoy our fun. Let's all do this line dance, Mm-hmm. So, and it's COVID, so not a lot of places were open. Right. So, so we get to Denver, and what's here in Denver, you know what we're famous for as far as the extracurricular activities. I don't partake anymore, but so we get here, and there's one bar downtown. I love the name of this bar. They're closed now, but I love that it's called Su Taco. They treated us well. The staff there was great, and we started to drink and partake of the extracurricular activities, and we didn't realize. You're 5,200 feet in the air. Right. You didn't realize how that hits you. So we thought that we can just keep on driving. That wasn't the case. We were like, no, you got to stop somewhere. So the locals said, stop out by Lookout Mountain. You can oversee the city. It's a little rough drive getting up there, but you can see pretty much everything in flatland, Denver and all things east. So we drove up there, saw a little spot, and I woke up to the most beautiful sunrise I had ever seen in my life. It was like I'm asleep in the car, and all I see is the sun peeking over, and I'm sitting a little higher in the mountains, and I'm like, man, So I joke with my wife, and I'm like, I could move here, man. And she's like, well, I mean, you know, fuck it. If you want to move here, let's do it.
Right.
We were joking at the time.
Right.
You know, but we kept driving on our path and then started driving back. We stopped in Denver again. And it was just like the people here were just so cool, man. Like, you know, it was just a different vibe. And, you know, we got back home and we were like, why not? Like, what's keeping us in DC?
You mentioned your wife a lot in this story here. How did you meet her?
So we're weird. We met online.
Okay.
We met online, and my wife has approved for me to say this message. We were, this is back when we were both dogs.
Okay.
And she was a cat, I guess. We were each other's quote unquote side pieces. But here's the crazy part about that, and I don't mind sharing this part. We've never told a lie to each other. Even when we were doing that, we were like, yeah, I got to go home to my girlfriend. And she's like, I got to go home to my boyfriend. And that was that. And then it was like, I don't know, something happened where we both broke up with our significant others at the time at the exact same time. And we were like, fuck it. I photographed her son's birthday party, who's now my son, of course. And 3 days later, I was like, you know, we never actually went on a date. Let's go get some Chick-fil-A. And she was like, we can do that, but can we go get some cheesesteaks from this spot in downtown Baltimore? And I was like, you know what? Let's do one better. Let's go to Philly and get these cheesesteaks. And that's what the fuck we did.
Wow.
We drove all the way to Philly just for some cheesesteaks. Shout out to Dalsandro's, best cheesesteaks in Philadelphia. We drove all the way out there. That was our first date. We went down, walked on the pier, and we were like, it was like, I don't know, something. It's like it was supposed to be. You know, it's an unorthodox way of starting it off, but that's the way we started it off.
You seem really big on relationships, right? You mentioned your grandmother, you mentioned your grandfather, your wife has now moved you to Colorado.
Right.
And I wonder if during COVID you had time to think about what you didn't do when you were younger.
We did. So my wife is a little bit younger than me. I think I have her by about 15 years. All right. During COVID, there were everybody was sitting in the house and stuff like that. And my wife was like, there's shit going on in Baltimore. I'm sorry, can I curse? Yeah. Like there's stuff going on in Baltimore, like that we can go to. And I'm like, huh? She's like, so like there are parties going on. We can go out. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to relive my youth. You know, I'm going to go to these little spots, you know, that feels like you got to take 3 guns in there because it's Baltimore. But, I'm out there. And then I caught COVID for the first time, very bad. Wow. And this woman, even though she didn't live with me, obviously, at the time, but this woman never left my side. We quarantined together. And when it was all over, she was right there by my side. So I'm very big on relationships. I'm very big on, you know, if I scratch your back, you scratch mine, are you going to be there for me? Because a lot of people would have said, you know what? People are dying from this. I'm just going to go home. Right. And she was like, you know what? I'm going to stay right by your side because, you know, the reason why I caught it is because I went out with her trying to party. And she was right there by my side. She took care of everything for me. And we can get into more about what she's done to kind of lead up to that portion of it. But she's big on her family too. Her family is it's you know, every morning she's talking to her mother, like every day, and her mother's in Baltimore. So that part of life is important to me, like, because, you know, family's gonna be family forever. So I hold on to those relationships.
What do you think makes you want to relive your childhood?
Maybe not relive. Just
Did you lose some younger years at all?
I think I lost a lot of younger. So I wasted my 20s by working and not traveling.
Okay.
If I had to tell the world, if anybody that's coming up 19, 20 or what have you, that career can come at 30. Live your life at 20. You know what I mean? Live your life at 20 because when you get 30, there are certain things you can't do at in your 30s typically that you can in your 20s. You know, like I found a love in mountain climbing. Right, well, not mountain climbing, but at least doing these hikes. I'm at 42 right now. I'm not climbing Mount Everest. I would love to, but that's something that I would have done at 23.
Right.
But I never thought of it because I was working, trying to build and for me, and because that's what was put in us. Like, hey, you gotta get this job. You gotta make this money as a man, this, that, and the third. But I would have definitely, if I had to do it all over again, I would have started to at least travel in my 20s.
Right.
And then in the 30s, that's when you start to settle down, where I'm kind of flipping that.
Right.
So I got to where I wanted to be in my 20s, and then I'm like, you know what? Let's start traveling now in my 40s.
Right, right. So. I mean, we all have our wild years, right? We both know that. But were there any other motivating factors for you to work that hard in your 20s?
I didn't know my father. I didn't meet him until 6 months ago. I guess maybe we'll get into that later. But I didn't meet him until 6 months ago. So my uncles played a big part of my life. And I'm going to say, I got a shout out to my Uncle Keith. His name is Keith Caldwell. He's my uncle by marriage, but I've known him all my life, and he was like a father figure to me. And he stressed the idea of work and the value of family. And here's the caveat. He doesn't have any kids, never did. So, but he treated me like his. I used to go out there for summers. I used to call myself the Fresh Prince of Cincinnati because, they had a little money and stuff like that.
Right.
But I attribute that work ethic to him.
Right.
Because it's just him and his wife. But he grinded. And here's the thing. I'm 42 now. He retired from his job at 45. Hasn't worked since. He's 63.
Right. But you have kids, right?
I have kids.
And how old were you when you had your first child?
So the first that I knew about, I was 30.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have 2 daughters and a son.
Mm-hmm.
The daughter that lives with me full time, her name is Ashley. She is 12, about to be 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out about a daughter that I had from Florida, like almost a year into that. So I'm like, well, wait, what? And I guess I can tell that story.
Yes.
Okay. So, so I'm coming to my aunt calls me and says that you got something from the sheriff's office. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me go see what this is. Cause my address when I was in Maryland, I had my own house, but I sent everything there because, that's
that's just what we do.
That's what we do. So my mail still goes there.
But some of my mail still goes to my mom's house.
She'll call. Yeah. So I get this piece of mail, and if anybody's ever gone through this, you have 2 options when you get something from for paternity. They're saying, hey, start paying child support, or you can get tested to see if this is your child. So obviously you're going to be like, yeah, I got to go get tested. Let me go test that. So it was a shock. I was like, you know what? Let me test that. Let me see what's going on. And I was with my youngest daughter's mother at the time. I received the paperwork, bad timing, the day before Valentine's Day.
Wow.
And I didn't even tell her about it because I'm like, this is not my child. Like, I'm not worried about this. It's not my child. Like, a wild weekend in Florida. Come on now. And how does she even know my real name? I went by Sean. I went by Sean or Deshaun Stevenson back in those days. Like, yes, that's what I did. So I opened up the mail, and for those that know, it's either 100% not yours or 99.9999 whatever yours. So I opened it up. I'm like, oh yeah, 99.999% you are the father. I'm like, what the hell? So I start opening up. I look at it. Funny story. That child was born July 10th, 2004. The daughter that I was raising was born July 10th, 2010. So they were born the same day, just different years. I guess I'm magic like that. But I was like, wow. So, but through the power of social media, you can always find somebody in like 2 minutes. So I went on Facebook, found her mother, and we started talking, and she let me talk to my daughter. And when I talked to her, I was like, man, she looks like me. Like she looks like me. And she was so happy to talk to me. And then we started, I forgot what the apps were back in 2011 for video chatting. We started chatting.
Skyping, probably.
It was that little orange, Uvu, I think it was.
Yeah.
Uvu, I think it was Uvu. And we started talking, and funny story. So at that time she was living in Sanford, Florida. I had tickets that year to go to the NBA All-Star game in Orlando, like the following week. And I had to tell my buddy, like, I can't go because I can't warrant going out there, seeing a basketball game when I have a daughter that I need to spend time with. So I sold those tickets. Me and my daughter kept talking, and I talked to her mother, and we ended up surprising, doing a little surprise. I was driving down, I was communicating with her mother, and I remember I know I'm getting a little deep here, but I remember the first time I knock on the door, and her mother answered the phone, and she's like, hey, Amira, you got somebody here to see you. And she's like, what? Who is it? I don't want to go outside. And she's like, no, you want to come see this. So she came out the room, and she looked at me, and I'm probably going to tear up here, but she said, Daddy. And she ran, gave me the biggest bear hug that that one can imagine.
Yeah.
And for that weekend, me and her, we lived it up. We drove out to Daytona Beach. We just did so much that weekend, and it was a shame. Like leaving was the hardest thing, but I told her I'll be back, and I actually came back and got her, and she stayed with me for 4 years. So after that, so I finding out about more children like that also helped with the focus. That wasn't the original focus at first, but then as you grow, you start realizing like you got to do it for your kids. And I didn't know my father growing up. I knew uncles that were good parents to their children. I knew a grandfather that had 7 kids.
And you were talking about just meeting your father, right?
Yeah, I was just talking about, yep.
So what is the story behind that?
So my father reached out to my mother long time ago on Facebook, and I told him, don't bother my mother, leave us the bleep alone. We only need nothing from you. And this wasn't ready to meet him. I was probably right when I started, when I had my daughter, she had just became, I'm like, I'm a father, I'm going to show the world I'm a father. You don't need to know what's going on in my life. He got sick, and it was communicated back to me that he was deceased. And I was like, okay, cool, I don't care. You understand? This year, I have one of my best friend, actually. His name is Dion also. We posted a picture on social media, me and a couple of our buddies, and a coworker of his was like, this is going to sound crazy, but I don't know how that guy in your photo, he doesn't know me, but that's my big brother. And I'm like, and she was like telling him, like, is there a way I can reach out to him? Because I don't want to just call him and say, hey. So my friend reached out to me and was like, you know what? I have the weirdest story for you, but this girl that I work with, she says she's your sister. So I'm like, all right, I'll hear her out, because I knew my father was a Rolling Stone. You know, it is what it is. So I reached out to her. We had a great we were like, she's like 3 years younger than me. Like, we were like twins, realistically. And she was like, yeah, her father, he raised her.
Right.
But she told me that he had 7 other kids, all by different women, every last one of them. Me and her are the 2 youngest. So my mom, he evidently he left my mother for her mother, and they got married and divorced now, but they got married. So that, that's back in the day. But, and she was like, he would love to meet you, but he understood if I didn't want to meet him, because he remembers the interaction, and he was like, you know what? I see him through social media. My social media isn't blocked. So I see him through social media. He's living a good life. He's raising his kids, his family. Me coming in the picture might hinder something. So I'm okay just watching him from afar. And we had a it was through Facebook through FaceTime at first. They all had a function. All my brothers and sisters were there at a function, and we started talking. And I was like, you know what? I'm 42 years old now. My family's good. We can possibly meet. So about 3 weeks later, I like to go. So we packed up the truck and we drove to Maryland. And when I finally met my father, he gave me the biggest hug. And my father, you could tell by the man, he's not a crying man. He pulled me to the side because he didn't want to do all this in front of everybody else. He's a private man. He was crying. He was like, man, I've waited so long to see you. I thought I would never see you. He was like, this just made my life complete, because even though he didn't know me, he knew his other children. He just didn't know me, because my family is like, if the man ain't going to be around, we got this. That's how my family is. So meeting him and actually spending time and now talking to him and we talk, like every time I come to Maryland, I make sure I spend like a day with him. It kind of completed the whole cycle. And I can now say, my mom, she wasn't happy at first, but, I can finally say stuff like mom and dad. And I see my children calling me mom and dad, my children calling me dad. Like, that is the biggest rush. Like, daddy. Now, I'm not going to call him daddy because I'm a grown ass man, but being able to say pops, being able to say dad, being able to call, I've even called him about some life advice, about me and my wife, because he's been married like 100 times. So, talking to him, is somebody that I can actually go to that's not an uncle, not an aunt, that's not going to be biased to the situation because they're blood. Somebody that is my father but doesn't really know me, and he can have a biased opinion about the situation. So it was like a complete. I'm complete as a human, if that makes any sense. So.
Yeah. You mentioned that your mom wasn't happy about it, and My mother never told me any stories about my father or any bad stories. I had to find out for myself. But when you, for lack of a better word, lashed out on your father when you were younger, do you think any of that had to do with whatever story your mother told you?
It's the story my entire family told me. Now, I always tell people there's two sides of every story, but I didn't listen to that in this situation. You know, I know my family, and, you know, I go off of logic more than anything else. You know, if this man, even though he wasn't like father of the year to all his children, he knew all his children, you know, and him not knowing me, and I talked to my mother about it. I'm like, this, you know, I'm not going to get mad at you or mad at the family, but I understand why you guys did what you did. But because looking at his address, he's been at the same house for almost 40 years.
Right. That shows stability.
It shows a little stability. And true story about him, Anacostia Liquors. You remember Anacostia Liquors for DC? He was the original owner of that. First black-owned liquor store. Yeah, he was the original owner of that. Wow. Now, of course, I'm like, well, Mom, shit, I should be getting child support. Like, my friends have Jordans, and I have XJ 900s from Payless, the fake joints. Like, you could at least hit the man up for some child support, but because he could be found easily.
Right.
But you know, they did what they did for a reason. And you know, my mother and my father, they've talked now. They don't talk, they don't call each other. If I'm around, they'll talk and they'll be cordial. And my father, he has good things. He's never said anything bad about my mother. He just said that things didn't work out. You know how old country folk are. They're not really going to talk about it. My mother, she'll say, yeah, he's piece of shit. Right. But looking at it, I don't. Let me back up. He didn't know his father either. So sometimes it's just hard. Like, I wanted to be different, but then I wanted to be different because I saw my grandfather raise 7 kids. I saw my uncles, my blood uncles raise their children, and I wanted to kind of be like that.
Right. And we discussed the importance of fathers off camera.
Yeah.
Do you believe that is the absolute motivation for you to be a father and at one time a single father?
Yes, absolutely. I think that having a seed and having somebody that is you, for lack of better terms, this is, you know, I joke around with my daughter all the time, like, you know, you came from my balls, right? She hates that shit. But I'm like, you were me. Like, I created you, and of course, you know, your mother had you. But at the end of the day, I think seeing yourself in your daughter, and I finally now have a son. Well, I have a son with my daughter, my wife, and I have a son that me and her had together. And you see these children and they emulate you. Like my stepson, who you reminded me before this, like, that's your stepson, but that's your son because you're married. I'm like, you're right. Both of these children, as soon as I walk in the door, they're looking to see, oh, what's dad doing? Right. And they're trying to follow whatever I'm doing, they do. And I'm like, man, I'm just watching these kids follow me. And then my daughter, she has so many views like I have. Like, my daughter sees my middle daughter. Like, she sees the good me. Like, you know how that question that people say, would you want your daughter to marry you? I'm like, yeah, what she sees of me, yeah, not the actual me, but what she sees of me, yes. I want her to find somebody as responsible as me, and I take pride in that. You know what I'm saying? Because I spoke at my grandmother's eulogy. You know, at her funeral. I did the eulogy at my grandmother's funeral, which was tough. And she has a lot of grandkids, but I was the one chosen. And my kids are going to be there just like that for me. They're going to be like, I need them to say when I'm sitting in that casket, this man did what he did for us. He sacrificed a lot for us, and whenever it was needed, he was there.
There's this term that's been floating around since 2020, and I wanted to ask you about it because, you know, we're here in the studio, right, in Denver, Colorado. Bunch of cameras around, bunch of lighting around, and a lot of people talk about generational wealth, right? And I actually don't believe in that.
I don't either. Oh, wow.
So,
I don't either. Go ahead.
So okay. I wanted to know what your thoughts were on generational wealth.
I feel, we back this up. If I won the lottery tomorrow for $100 million, I'll put away about $1 million for each kid, but I'm blowing the rest. Or if I earn that, I'm blowing the rest. Here's the why. Any child that's born now has more of an advantage, or more of an advantage than I did, you did, or anybody that's in our age bracket just like we had more of an advantage coming from our parents, And I feel kids that are given everything up front, they end up being pieces of shit. Like it just is. They don't have any values for anything. They don't work hard for anything. My daughter is my middle child. When I say 12 years old, she's like, Dad, when can I work? I'm like, babe, you got to wait a few years. But I think I can get this job at this amusement park. No, you can't, baby. You can't work there. You're not old enough yet. What that tells me is that when she's of age to work, she's going to work. She doesn't know this. I'm going to buy her car, but I'm going to charge her the money that I pay for it and then save it for her for her college fund. And then when she gets to college, I know she's going to work. When she gets out of college, I know she's going to work. You know what I'm saying? She's going to try to be a successful person in this world one way or the other. If I had generational wealth, they don't value anything. They don't value $10, $20, $30.
Right.
They're like, Daddy, you have it. You had it. Why don't you have it now? So yeah, I'll tell this to anybody. Don't save the money for them kids. Let them kids figure it out for themselves. Now go bail them out if they need help. But let them figure it out on their own. Let them create their own path. Don't create the path for them.
Well, I don't believe in generational wealth because it doesn't last generations. If let's say you did hit the lottery, you gave your kids all of that money, it may make it to the next generation. But a lot of times kids don't know what to do with it.
Nope.
So you being an entrepreneur and you're talking about your daughter wanting to work, why haven't you told her earn your own money?
Well, she can't now. She's 12. But
lemonade stand?
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Now, I have told her that whatever you want to do, I'll support it, so to say. We haven't gotten to the point of her owning her own business just yet or doing that. So that's something that's definitely coming, it's in the works. My oldest daughter, I love her to death, but, because I had to give her back to her mother, I'm also, let's just say I'm also a grandfather too. So
congratulations.
I'll tell the world. I'll tell the world. My youngest son is 2 months older than my grandson. So with that being said, I wish I could have had those conversations with my now 18-year-old,
right?
But she was just taken too soon. And through custody stuff, you know how it goes. Sometimes you just can't reach out to them based on the mother and stuff like that. But with my youngest daughter, I think that conversation is coming at some point. But I like the fact that she wants to get out there and earn $1, earn $1. And here's another thing about Denver, Colorado. I've never cut my grass. It's a kid next door who knocked on my door, my exact next door neighbor. He knocked on my door and said, "Hey, Mr. Lawson, do you mind if I cut your grass into your backyard?" And I'm like, "Well, how much you charge for that?" He's like, "I'll do $25 for the whole thing." I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna give you $45. All right, because that's a lot of stuff that you're doing. He came, this summer he came over faithfully, cut our grass and all that type of stuff. Did that for the neighbors. He's outside washing cars. This kid is 16 years old. About 2 months ago, I walked out the door with my daughter. Got a new Dodge, not a new, but he got a Dodge Ram sitting there, and that's just his. He just has his He just has his learners. He worked all summer for that. My daughter sees that. That's what I want. The mental I want her to have. I'm gonna work for this. I'm gonna get mine, and when I get it, it's mine. You can't say it's not mine.
Right. We differ on this.
Sure.
But you don't believe that you can force your kids into success?
No. I have a degree, elementary education. I minored in psych. I don't think that parenting is manipulation. You tell your kids all these great things. You tell them like, "Oh yeah, you got to do this, got to do that," and at the end of the day, they still have to fight their own battles.
Right.
I don't think you can force them to do anything because at a certain age, you start to realize I'm my own person. And the one thing I have learned, kids don't like to do what their parents tell them to do. It's just natural. Like, it's just one of those things. Even if they're a good kid, they want to buck a little bit. So if I tell my child, "Hey, you should do this. You should go into photography," because that's an example. They're probably going to be like, "Well, no, I probably want to write stories." You know what I mean?
Tiger Woods, Michael Jackson,
the
Williams sisters.
Michael Jackson's relationship with his father was some poop. The Williams sisters had a great relationship.
Janet Jackson
didn't have a great relationship with her father.
I'm just speaking about kids who started early and were pushed.
They did
to be successful.
Now, look at the caveat. As a kid,
would you rather have an unsuccessful child, or would you rather have an unsuccessful child in that relationship?
Tough question. I'm ready for it.
Or an extremely successful child that you're proud of, and maybe you can mend that relationship later on down the line.
I want a happy child.
Happiness is a fleeting feeling, though.
It is. What I want for my children. I want them to be the best of what they want to do. My mother said a crazy thing when I was a kid. Craziest thing and my mother's a good, wholesome Christian woman. I grew up around drug dealers. That's all they knew. A lot of them are dead now, jail, what have you. And a lot of my family members, not my direct family, but my grandfather's brothers and their kids ended up, living the street life. They moved out to Baltimore and stuff like that. Uh-huh. And my mother was like, if you're going to follow in that path and be a drug dealer, goddamn it, you better be Rayful Edmonds. That's what she said. Blew my mind. I was like, huh? Her point was, whatever you're going to do, be the best at it. Because I can't control what you do. You know what I mean? I don't want to have that control, because then because it might not be what you're made for. Like, all of us men want our kids to be an NFL or NBA star, right? That's what we do. What we can do is we can put the ball in their hands, and like right now I was telling you that, with my youngest, my baby, he just turned 1. I'll go to the basketball court. I'll turn his stroller around. He'll watch me shoot jumpers all day. So I'm trying to mentally, that's that manipulation. Right. I'm trying to put it in his head that this is it. If he enjoys basketball, then I'm gonna be like, yes, and we're gonna push it. If he all of a sudden says, Daddy, I think I want to play the violin, I'm gonna ask him why. Are you sure you want to quit on this? And then he could be the number 1 8th grader in the country. I know that sounds crazy, but if he wants to play the violin and be in the New York Orchestra, what have you, I value his happiness over anything. Like, I'm gonna ask you a question. John Morant and all the stuff he's going through. All right. I think he was pushed into basketball. He's a successful basketball player, but I don't like looking at his old Facebook posts. I don't think he really wanted to just be real. He wanted to be a gangster. Right. That's what he wanted to be. Right. His parents kind of got him out of that life, what have you. But here's the thing. Is that brother happy?
He's like a $400 million gangster now.
But is he happy? We don't know. But
do the best with what you have.
Do the best with what you have.
So we talked about this, and we both believe that fathers belong in a home, right? Mm-hmm. You talk about your grandfather, how you saw how much of a family man he was and how he took care of his family. That led you to being a single dad and now married and taking care of multiple children, right?
Yes.
And a grandbaby.
Yes, a grandbaby.
Right? So there's some importance to just rearing your child in
Definitely
a direction of some sort.
Definitely.
It doesn't matter if when they get older, they're off your hands anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You rear them. But when I look back, my high school years, best of my life. I didn't think of it that way in high school, right?
Right.
A lot of kids were forced to play sports they didn't want to play. And I see it all the time. Like I said, this is the psych part of me coming out. I see it all the time where they're just not happy individuals. They may be successful.
Is it about what you want to do or what's good for you?
One of my good friends, I'm going to bring him out there. One of my good friends is Delonte West. Gotta say it. One of my good friends. That man wasn't happy playing basketball. I hate to say it this way. I think he's happier now. He's not in a good situation. You don't look at it that way, but he seems very content with what it's like. Like he's.
So you would be okay with your kids being bums?
I would hate it mentally. I would do my best to try to get them out of that. But if they're content with their life, see, my whole thing is be content with your life. Right. It's your life to live. I don't have to live your life. Right. I would love to see my children be billionaires, but I don't have to live their life. You understand what I'm saying? Right. They have to live their life, because we even talk about this. Money doesn't make you happy.
Money doesn't not make you happy.
Success sometimes doesn't make you happy.
No, I think we're definitely uber driven by just being the best at everything, right? That's like an American thing. And the percentage of happiness here is low in comparison to every other country in the world.
I don't want to break feelings, but everybody in this country has a therapist. Even I have a therapist. You know what I'm saying?
There's nothing wrong with therapy, though.
There's nothing wrong with it, but did your parents have therapists? Did your grandparents have therapists?
I hate when we do that because the way of living now is we're so connected. Just that alone can cause stress that wasn't available when our parents and grandparents were around.
Fair enough. The company that I work for, the company that I met you with, we're not going to slam them.
Yes, please don't say. Come on.
But this
pod just got good.
Right. But because if y'all want to sponsor this,
no, we not. No.
But the company that we work for, right?
Mm-hmm.
I made a lot of money with that company. My last job at that company, I was making well over $100,000 a year.
Right.
And I needed therapy to get through that company day to day. I'm on my own now. I don't see my therapist anymore.
When
I was leading that, I'm doing what I want to do.
So when you were at that company, that's when I first noticed that you were into photography. Mm-hmm. Right? Is that when the bug hit you, or?
So I could tell you about that story a little bit. So what I used to do was I used to take a lot of photos on my iPhone. And there were some couple of photo editing apps like Snapseed back in the day that people used to use to kind of enhance them. So I take a photo, edit it that way, and I'll just show people, oh, this is my kids, this is where I went this weekend, blah, blah, blah. And somebody asked me, oh, what kind of camera are you shooting with? And I'm like, I don't know, iPhone 6. And it was like, oh man, like you should be shooting with a brand new Nikon. I'm like, no, it's just my phone in my pocket.
Right.
So there was a young lady that I used to work with. I love her, Dana Shoemaker. Hope she... I'm gonna make sure
I'm bleeping all these names out.
Oh, you
keep name dropping.
All right, so bleep bleeper. bleep bleeper. I forgot that's the thing you have to do in podcast. Bleep bleeper.
You can come up with another name. You saying they whole government and everything.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I mean, come on now.
So bleep. So Kim Kardashian.
Oh my god.
So she bought this camera, mm-hmm. and you were there at work that day. And she brought this camera, and she was like, "Oh, Amazon has a good deal." This is when it was Amazon, but it wasn't the same Amazon. Like we were like, I'm still kind of ordering from a website, it's having UPS and FedEx send it. Right. I'm like, let me get on that same deal. So I got the camera, started shooting, and then shooting with my kids, and then another employee named Bleeper. He actually went to school for photography,
right?
And me and him have a falling out, so hopefully he can see this and we can talk. But he got me into photography. He taught me some things, and we went on this photo shoot together. And he had his nice camera that costs money. I had mine that cost maybe a couple $100. Mm-hmm. Shot these models, and they like my stuff. And I'm like, really? Me? Are you sure? And me and him started working together, and I started upgrading my equipment, and I'm like, man, it just happened. And I used to draw when I was a kid, but then I used to think that was lame. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to get back into something that's artsy,
right?
And I've always been a fan of a good photo, even before I even thought about taking photos myself, because I didn't even know what a DSLR was 7 years ago. Didn't have an idea of what that phrase meant. Mm-hmm. So basically started taking pictures. Then it starts getting good when people are starting to pay you for their pictures, so you're like, oh man, make money off of this,
right?
And that's kind of where it started. And started doing some events and stuff with Bleeper, and the money started coming. Then I started doing the math on this. I'm like, if I did this full time, I can make some money. But you still have your day job, you got your kids to take care of, and maybe the savings isn't where it needs to be for you to kind of jump into it full fledged. Mm-hmm. And leading up to right before COVID, I got to the point where, God, I was like, man, I'm ready to leave the evil empire and just do this full time. I got a studio out there and stuff like that. And, I had almost $30,000 in deposits for the summertime. I'm like, man, this is going to be a good, because if I got 30,000, I take 50% deposit. That means I got this coming in this summer. I'm like, oh man, I can do this full time. And then, the Popeyes chicken sandwich came out, and COVID changed the world. The world just changed. Because when that chicken sandwich came out, that's when
you emphatically talk about COVID.
Yeah.
I believe that you weren't alone as along with many of people, right? Mm-hmm. The world who had time to sit down and think.
Right.
So yes, the job that you had at that time was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But I also believe that that job led you to meeting
It did.
your partner at that time, right?
The job, everything that company has done, that's why I'm not really going to shame them or badmouth them. Even the studio that we're in now,
right?
The partnerships that I have here was based on that job.
So
I know
you're saying that everyone has a therapist, but I think what happened is we slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
We all slowed down, and when you start to slow down and take a look around, you start to find out that you have things that don't really serve you.
Yeah.
There's no value here. Some of your friendships aren't real friendships. Some of your business partners are lazy.
Yep.
Right. And now, right, all that traveling that happened with you and your wife, now you're here in Colorado and we're in a beautiful studio. How did this come about?
So the company that I was with, I wanted to be on their media team. I've been trying to be, like, even when I was there back in the day, and here's what they kept telling me. We need you to go to school for photography. And I'm sitting there like, I don't need to. YouTube can teach. I'm giving some facts here. YouTube can teach you everything you need to know about photography. It's just now, do you want to do it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do you have, because I put in maybe 6 months worth of just watching YouTube. I'm talking about 6 months total of just watching YouTube and learning my crafts and what I need to do. So
outside of your work hours.
Outside of my work hours.
Outside of raising your kids.
Yeah. So instead of me going to school for photography, I went to YouTube and I followed other photographers and I watched what they did, watched all of their videos, hours and hours and hours of videos. And that's where I got to me. Right. Now, but the company that I work for, I almost slipped and said their name. The company that I work for said you can't be on that media team because you don't have certificates or degrees in this field, whatever. Through some connections at that job, they were doing a photo and video shoot here for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and they booked the studio. I came, and the person who the story was being told, she worked in my department. And we shot it here. She said, "Hey, I want you to come along because you just did my graduation for. I want you to come along to be a part of this. I want you to meet some of the stuff because she's a great networker. Like, she's the best networker I've ever met in my life." And she was like, "You can just meet these people and shoot with them and stuff like that." So I came along, started talking, and looking to see what they did. And the owner of the studio was like, "This is my, Now he's like, all right, I can probably get business from him,
right.
Right. Based on that alone.
Yeah.
Because at that time, he doesn't know what I'm doing for that company. He just sees me with the media company. And of course, I dropped some monster photos too. So that's just not video. That's just not, but, and then,
preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah. So a month later, he hit me up and said, "Hey, these people can't pay you, but, they need some video work for this fashion show. I thought of your name. If you want to come do it, by all means, you have free access to come do it." So I was like, heck yeah, I'll come do it. So I went, did their fashion show. They had other photographers, videographers there. I'm like, I got to get my stuff to them right now. They got to see my work first. So I put that video out. Mind you, I'd never shot a fashion show a day in my life. This video. I never shot a fashion show a day in my life. And the video was
turned out well.
Turned out great. And he kept inviting me. Then through that, some of the people that he was having, like, "I would like to hire you for your services." And then, studios being studios, it's always good to have investors. We talked, 2-month conversation about, is there a chance we can kind of work together? So, me, I need something in return. I need some kind of compensation. I don't want to just be taking video and photos. I want a rock. I want something to say,
equity.
Hey, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for, right. Equity in it. So we discussed it, met with some attorneys, and he's still majority,
right?
But I'm the Magic Johnson of this with the commander. Can I say Magic Johnson?
You can say what you. You can say what you want.
But he just ventured into with the Commanders deal, so I'm not a majority, but I have stake now.
Nice.
And through that relationship with my old company, I was able to meet a new relationship, a new partner, and from here, it's just blown from there. Yeah,
I think we both have similar stories when it comes to the company we work for. We were in lower tier positions on a different side of the company, and to get over the corporate there just wasn't a way.
No.
Right. So we persisted, we tried their way, and then eventually we made a way out of no way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that everybody can do that?
No. All right. No. I know it's supposed to be uplifting. I'm sorry, man. So here
we also keep it real too.
Yeah. Here's what. So my wife, I'm gonna bring her up in this. She's told me, I'm not a boss. I'm a worker. I don't want to manage anybody. I don't want to be responsible for the next person. I'm a worker. And that's what she's okay with that. And when you start thinking of it on a psychological level, if everybody could be rich, they just would. I might go off a beaten path a little bit. I don't want to, but we got time, right? So that you have people that are logical. You have people that have common sense. You have people that only have one of the two. You have people that have both. And you have people that have neither of the two, unfortunately. All right. A person with common sense that lacks logic, those are your millionaires. I'm going to say it again. A person with common sense that lacks logic, those are your millionaires. Because here's what they're going to do. They're going to think about what they're going to do. They're not going to make the dumb mistake, but they're going to go all in when the logic says you shouldn't be doing this with what you have. People that have logic and no common sense, smart as hell, but never make it out, but never make it to the next level because there's too much logic there. They're thinking too much.
Well, do you logically feel that maybe you are withholding your daughters from becoming entrepreneurs because you know the stress and struggles that you've been through to get to where you're at now?
I don't think so. For me, I just want them to have their path, and I want them to develop their logic and their common sense. And here's the thing: if you have both, you're not going to be poor. You might not be rich, but you're going to live a good life if you have logic and common sense. And that's where I think I fall with the logic and common sense. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. Sometimes I wish I just had only common sense because then I would just go in everything and I'd probably be rich.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So.
But our culture, I feel, is now getting to that. And I feel that we overextend on one end and bring down another when we do it. Right. Because now then there's women empowerment to all Black women.
Yeah.
Right. Go get your bag. Go do what you got to do. And it seems as if culturally, a lot of fathers, we don't want that for our daughters. But I feel that you would push your son in a different direction.
I'm probably going to get smited for this, but you cannot, just like you cannot treat every person the same way, you cannot raise your kids the same. They're not the same. They're different individuals. I would how can I say this? It's a different world that we live in now, and I believe anybody can do anything. That's all. Let me get that out right now. I believe anybody can do anything.
Are you shooting yourself some bail?
No. Yeah, definitely. I'm calling the bail bondsman. Anybody can do anything. However, your daughter, if you're a father, is daddy's little girl. It's normally mama's boy, but it's daddy's little girl. And if some little knucklehead boy wants to take my 14-year-old daughter to go shopping with this little change, oh baby, where are you trying to take you? Oh man, daddy got more money than him. Come ride with me. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're gonna do that for your daughter.
You're just gonna be overprotective.
Yeah.
Right.
Your sons, we've all grown. We've all like your sons. Sons are a little bit. Boys they're naturally different in most cases. They're gonna want to go with their friends regardless, because at some point you're gonna have to look your son in the eye and remind him that you are the father. I am still the man of my house. If you don't want to abide by that, you can go. Whereas your daughter is probably not going to try to
be the revolving door.
Right, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing. And let's take it back to the street light thing. My mother used to tell me when the street lights come on, come home.
Right.
You know, as a little boy, I got another hour and a half. I'll deal with that punishment. My mom really can't hurt me. My dad could, but he wasn't around. My mom really can't hurt me, so I'll stretch that. Whereas, and I know I have young boys. They're gonna push that. I see it in my neighborhood now. Little boys be out a little longer than little girls. When them streetlights come on, and if I can't see my daughter before the sun hits that mountain here in Denver, I'm looking for her out the neighborhood. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is, because boys, we typically run in packs. You have your leader of the pack. You have your dumb one, and maybe you fall in between that. Whereas girls typically don't run in packs like that. So
I speak of culture. You didn't speak of culture. But
I'm sorry.
But do you think we have culture as black people?
Yes. We unfortunately.
Do you think we have a black male hating culture? Because you said when you mentioned your father, you mentioned how the stories that were told to you about him were, you know what, we'll take care of it. And I've heard that in our culture more than many. I mean, obviously I'm around black people more growing up, but I haven't really heard that too much outside of us. I know it happens.
Now that you speak on it.
But do you think we have a black male hating culture?
Yes. When I sit back and I think logically about this, I believe we do. I believe that the American black male trying to find its place in America has always been a struggle. We don't know where we really came from. Only culture we have is the American culture that's given to us. So me and you are as American as apple pie.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But homegrown, but we never want to see it that way. But the fact is,
this is our country.
This is our country.
Yeah.
But then a lot of things did happen to us in the past, which caused things to kind of go awry and kind of, conflict things. But I do think that based on the way a black boy is supposed to be raised into a man, it does put a lot of hate and shame on black men as a whole, when nobody looks at the statistics that there are more black fathers that know their children than any other race. I'm going to say that in this country. We take care of our kids more than anybody else, but the narrative isn't that. So
do you feel that fear has been more of a motivator for you as a black man than actually wanting to succeed?
I would say I don't think it's fear. I think it's more or less not wanting to let my forefathers that paved the way for me to get the education that I did bring it back to my grandfather, 3rd grade education. That's as far as he got. Grandmother, 11th grade education, as far as she got. My grandfather was a tobacco farmer, maybe a moonshiner, bootlegger. But my grandmother, this is gonna trip you out. You know what her name is? Her name is Nanny. Her maiden name, Nanny Sue Dunn. And you know what she did as a job when the kids were at school? She was a nanny. Nanny Sue got it done. That's where my roots came from. She's now Nanny Sue Lawson, obviously, but I didn't they worked so hard for my little black tail to be where I'm at. So why not try to be the best person that I can be, just based on seeing what I didn't get to see it, obviously, because I was too old, too young, but that's where it came from. So I think that's part of my drive. I can't disappoint my grandfather. I knew him for 11 years. I called him Day because I didn't, know father, so I called him Day, and he was the world to me. So,
do you ever think you'll be enough?
No, I don't think I'll be enough. I don't think.
You think you'll ever do enough?
No, not enough time. Not enough time. I'm not going to climb Mount Everest. I want to, but.
All right. I think there's a little bit of fear.
It's definitely. Oh well, no, it's not fear. It's
fear of failure.
No. It's can my body hold up? Listen, if I had the money to spend $1 million on my body like LeBron James, I think I'd do it.
So now you're here in the studio. You've done a couple photo shoots, right? You've got some equity. Things are going well. Have you had any challenges?
Oh, every day, man. Like, when you have to, so every morning I look and see anybody book, what's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, nobody's booking today. So now I got to get on the phone like I was, at prior companies and make those calls, call those people like, hey, yes, you got this shoot, what's going on? Call these companies like, hey, I see your brand. What can I do to, have you ever thought about doing this for your brand? Have you ever thought about adding this to your brand? So it's one of those things that every day, it's definitely tough, but here's the catch. I enjoy doing it.
You enjoy cold calling?
No, I enjoy controlling my own money. I looked at stat sheet of how much I made the company that I work for in my little sector. Made that company millions, and I got less than 5% of it.
And now you have your own studio.
And now I have my own studio, so whatever comes in here, I get a bigger portion of that. And we just had a big corporation shoot here today as we were setting up, and that stuff like that. I signed right when that came along.
Do you ever have anybody try to offer you things outside of payment?
Yes. I don't accept that though. Only time I accept something is if all right, so if it's a scenario like, I don't know, I'm just gonna give a blanket example. If a tire company was like, hey, we can give you, I see you got a Jeep, and I see you trying to customize it. We can give you these new tires that cost $2,500 for your Jeep. If you can just take some photos, I definitely do that.
I was talking about physical intimacy.
Oh man, you say that's my wife walked in, but no. But no, have I had that? Yes, I have had that. And
how do you handle when people come on to you on photo shoots?
So my thing with models, your business. I don't look into it like, you can be Beyonce and try to give it up. If you're business, you're business. You're not. I've never seen. I've never mixed. What's that phrase? Don't stick your pen in corporate ink. I've never mixed that.
Business and pleasure.
Yeah, I've never mixed that because I've seen what it does to everything, and it's just not worth it. So I see what most people would say a pretty face as a number, and that number is what can you do for me financially. Now there are certain models that I'm like, all right, because of your look, and I have been dry this week or this last 2 weeks, and I haven't put any content out for people to see. I'll give you a shoot with this kind of concept. You understand what I'm saying? And then what that'll do is that'll bring in more clientele, but that's just your offer. And I tell them that if you tell somebody about that, we're never shooting again. To you, you paid for the shoot. The reason being is because I need them to know that everything is paid for, but sometimes you do have to get some content out there,
right,
and what have you. So
you're here, wife's here. Hey, baby. Last question is, what's next?
So I actually like this studio idea. I'm not really, maybe not thinking on the grand scale of Tyler Perry, but I do believe that businesses like this in your major cities, they have value. And I want to be able to bring more stuff like this to other places so that people can come in, and maybe just feel like a model for a day. Because what we have here, we have a team of professionals that will do your makeup, that will be your stylist. Like they'll do everything here for you. I want to open more stuff like that because sometimes the average person just wants to feel like, they're a superstar. And I want to do this in more cities. So that's what I think the long-term goal is. And of course I want to also promote myself for Black business. Pretty much everybody that has their hand in the studio is not, for lack of better terms, white. I hate to say it that way, but we're
so
all,
you want to diversify.
Yeah, we're all minorities in this, and we're here to put that to give that to people, so to say.
Well, I appreciate your time, Dion.
Yes, sir.
From DC to DC. Keep it uplifting. That was fun.
Make sure to like, comment, share, and most importantly, keep it uplifting.
Take it up, listen.